Don't you think blockers are really annoying? You want to get in with your 6-6 ravenous Lindworm and your opponent just stops it with a 1-1. Well, there is an answer for you, specifically. It's trample. In short, trample lets you deal excess combat damage to a player or planeswalker that you're attacking. But there's more to it. Let's start with the word excess. Excess means any damage that comes after lethal damage. So if your opponent blocks with a 4 toughness creature against your Dreadmaw, you deal 2 extra damage to them. That feels powerful and wild, because now your monster is unstoppable. And that is exactly the role of trample in the game. It wants to make us feel like our big creatures have something to do, like their wildness is dignified. If your damage would be lethal because of, for example, Death Touch on a Majestic Myriarch, the rest of the damage goes through to your opponent. This makes the 2 keywords Death Touch and Trample a great and lethal combination that's not simply found on any single creature. Even Indestructible can't stop Trample, but you would have to deal the lethal damage first before trampling over in this case. You do get stopped by protection abilities. If the creature that was blocking dies, Trample acts as if there wasn't a blocker and all damage goes to your opponent. One more note is that Trample is a kind of May ability. You could choose not to do any damage to the player and could instead assign all the extra damage from the creature too. There's not often an upside to this, but be creative. So what does trample mean? Trample means that a creature has the power to walk all over your opponent. They're so strong that you can stand in front of them, but they will still move on in an instant unless you're heavy enough to survive all of that damage. I feel like the best other ability to compare trample to in order to understand it is unblockable. This ability enables your creature to pass by something without getting into the conflict. So trample wants to do that, but it does want to get into conflict first. It will fight whatever it sees. This creature will fight anything that it sees, but will still go on to fight more. It cannot be stopped, it is. Maybe instead of unblockable, it is unstoppable, basically. You don't have to be big though, you could also be ferocious, although there's often not much use for a small creature that has trample, because with a 2/2, you would at most trample, well, 2 damage, unless you give it all of your equipment or double strike, of course. In any case, I feel trample should feel strong and ferocious. It is as if you are fighting 2 opponents at once. You're fighting the blockers and the life total. That's why it's often found in green, but red can have it too. Then it's more often a show of willpower instead of brute force. Although there are of course exceptions. In fact, any big creature can have trample, even when it doesn't even tread on and crush. Trample has the undertone of going where you need to be, or even just doing what you want. Fully Grown is a rare kind of card that makes trample counters. It grows your creature. There's the size again, but it also says in the flavor that she just goes wherever she goes and her bonder rides along. Trample is all about strutting wherever you want to strut. Trample is often green's answer on how to evade blockers. Where blue evades and flies over, green gets annoyed by the same trickery. Green hates unblockable or flying. Green is all about strength and fighting, and when a creature doesn't want to fight, it gets furious. These monsters don't care that you're in the way, but they want you to be in the way. Even sheer numbers can mean trampling, as long as you have enough perseverance, as long as the numbers would allow you to get through. Sometimes you need to get in your damage. You need to allow space for nature. This is the only time nature wants to become destructive, when it's not allowed to do what's natural. That's why Gruul is such a famous example of destructive force. Size and ferocity aren't everything. Actually, anyone that can smash a window can get trampled. Stretch that. Anyone that can dance could get trampled, as long as you do it with fervor. Perhaps that's a better word for it, fervor. Because it doesn't matter how you do it, you have to show that you don't stop until you can't tread on and move. I want to go over some fringe applications of trample that also seem to teach us a lot about the ability and what it means. So starting with Thrasta, Tempest Roar, who has trample over planeswalkers on top of her trample ability. So this big dinosaur has some sort of mana ability around itself that makes lightning strike, seemingly. So first of all, Thrasta is really big, so she can trample over anything already. But then whenever the creature can deal excess damage to the controller of the planeswalker it's attacking. Oh, so you can start to attack a planeswalker and then also attack the player. So basically what happens is you attack a planeswalker, you kill a creature, and then when the planeswalker is also killed, you also start to damage the player. So this is sort of double trample, which is, I think, funny. Then, in mostly red, there is the ability to trample over creatures with spells. So Flame Spill, for example, says deal 4 damage to target creature, and excess damage is dealt to that creature's controller instead. It doesn't say spell trample, but it is spell trample. And then there is another sort of classic example of trample where creatures you control with trample, or any creature basically, may assign its combat damage as though it weren't blocked. So these creatures, they attack in so wildly that they sort of still pass through the other creatures that can block it still. It does want to fight, but it just doesn't look at the creatures that try to fight it. It just goes on to the player immediately, and I feel like this is even more ferocious than unblockable, and even more than trample. Now there is a small new one, but I think it is only on one card up to this point. It is Ram Through, which says that a creature fights another creature and then deals the excess damage to the creature's controller. So this sort of helps you use the trample for a creature on a fight spell, which I think is cool and which I think we could do some more with, because this does feel very strong. And then I have 2 more sort of trample commanders, or trample lords, I think is better to say. We have Quartzwood Crasher, which is 5 mana for a 6/6 with trample, which is of course greatly costed, but it is Gruul, so we expect that. And it says whenever one or more creatures you control with trample deal combat damage to a player, which also counts when you deal trample damage, create an XX green dinosaur beast creature token with trample. So the amount of damage that you deal means the size of the dinosaur that you create with trample. So this is sort of doubling itself. But X is the amount of damage those creatures dealt to that player. So you can create many dinosaurs with very big stats if you keep on doing this. And then there was this weird one, which I hadn't really found on my own, but it is Megalonoth, which is a creature that Maya found to be the general of Naya's mightiest army, as we read in the flavor. I got this from a certain Mael player, actually, from Twitter. But this creature blocks a creature and then it deals damage to that creature's controller equal to Megalonoth's power. So this is a sort of extra trample, but it is dealing damage not equal to the excess damage, but equal to Megalonoth's power, which I feel like if you can make Megalonoth big enough, this can basically stop anyone from attacking you. So it is very strong, I feel like. And it is a sort of trample, but not really. It is keeping your opponents from attacking you, which feels weird. But still, this has trample, so I feel like it adds on to the lore of trample. And that was it for what trample means. Let me tell me. I'm done with telling you things now. But tell me what your favorite moment is of having creatures with trample, or whether you have found some more cool creatures with trample that you'd like to share that I haven't shown up to now. Let me know. Have a nice day, and bye.